Hello? Right, it seems like I'm already live. I didn't realize that. Okay, so today, this evening, I'm going to be continuing a Python course on Kaggle. I'm currently on Module 5. And Module 5 is about loops and list comprehensions. So there's two sections to it. I'm going to start with the theory section, which will give us the background to basically complete the exercises. So the first thing that it talks about is about loops. And loops, as you probably already know, or you can guess, it's all about executing code repeatedly. So here I can see an example of a for loop. So this is a list, planets, which we've seen that in the previous module. And then we iterate through each planet in the list of planets. And then we print each element. There's different ways of doing a for loop, but the one that we are showing here, the first name here is a variable that you're going to give to each element in a list, and the second parameter after in is the list itself that you want to use. It can be a list, it can be a list of tuples, or it can be even a map. So we use the word in to link these two together. And the object to the right of the in can be any object that supports iteration. Basically, it can be thought as a group of things. We can loop over it. And we can iterate over other things as I mentioned, a tuple. Here another example. Instead of using a list, we're using a tuple. And this tuple has 6 elements. And we basically are multiplying like a number by each number in the tuple. So the big difference between tuples and lists is actually that lists are mutable, which means that they can change. Tuples are immutable, so you can't change directly a tuple. So you need to create a new tuple to basically to modify it. From the point of view of iteration, it's exactly the same. So next example, showing me here a string. And what it's doing is basically, this is a for loop. So it basically takes a character from the string at the time. So this string has, I don't know, n characters. So it's going to go through each character in this string, and it's going to, if it's an uppercase character, as you can see, is upper is a method, it will print that character. And as you can see here, they've kind of, well, here's H, E, then am I missing? Yeah, L, and so on. One more L, and yeah, there's another L here, and then O, and then the output is going to be hello. So range is a function that returns a sequence of numbers, and it turns out to be very useful for writing loops. So basically it's convenient because you can define a range for example, here. So this starts a range of 5 means all the elements starting at 0 up to 5 excluding 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, so another type of loop is one where you have a condition. And the reason, so basically you want to iterate over, you want to repeatedly do something until a condition is met. Let's say you want to, I don't know, wait until, for example, something is switched on. I don't know. So you can think of examples. Here they have an example of, this is very much like the previous example, right? Where they have a range. Here we are saying, while I is less than 10, we print I, and then we separate each element with a space, and then we increment I. So once I equal to 10, it will stop. It will not do any more within here. But then you can argue that maybe this is as good as doing this type of, you could do a range instead. It's an option. But while is more useful when you're trying to do something that you don't know how long it will take, and you just want to terminate when a very particular condition is met. You can do that. For example, when you're reading a big file, you will find that you'll have something like a while loop. Okay. Hope that was clear. If it's not clear enough, please just leave some questions. I will answer them like as soon as I can within this video, or if not, I'll we talk about it in another video. List comprehensions. Okay, so this is a bit more difficult type of loop, and what we're doing here, instead of just defining each element of a list one by one, we use a function, some kind. For instance, we are defining here in this example a function of n squared. You know, star is like exponent 2, right? In this case, exponent and then 2, so n squared. And then we do this repeatedly for each n from 0 to 9. Remember that 10 is excluded from the end of the range. So 0, 1, 4, 9, and so on. So n equal to 3 is 9. 16. Sorry, 4 equal to n equal to 4 is 4 square is 16, and so on. So let's talk about another. Let's see another example. This one is very similar. What's the difference here? So the next example is just basically showing you how you would do it without list comprehensions, right? So it's using here a for loop, and it's basically applying the same type of function as you would. Do you see the difference here? Which one do you prefer? This one or this one? Well, if you want to answer, you can put that in the comments and just let me know what is your preferred way. It's not just about number of lines as well. It's also about readability, right? So you can argue that maybe even if a bit of code, if this code has less lines of code, maybe it's harder to read than this one, and in that case maybe you would prefer this version of the code, or, you know. Yeah, let me know your opinion. Yes. Right, so this is another example here of list comprehensions with an if statement. So we have so we're basically saying in this list comprehension we want all the elements in planets, but with a length of 6 or less. In this case, the length of planet is basically the number of characters, right? So any planet with 6 characters, under 6 characters length, will be included in this list. We call it short parameters. And here it's basically saying, I don't know if you come from a SQL, you've learned SQL before, it's the same thing as trying to do a select statement where you use a where clause. And the where clause normally is used to restrict the number of results that you get, just like the if statement here. Okay, another example of list comprehensions. You can really go, I would say, crazy with list comprehensions as well. Okay, so we are basically converting everything to uppercase, each planet to uppercase, adding an exclamation mark, and here is our, basically for each planet, in planets, if length of planet is less than 6. So basically using a similar clause that we used before in the previous example, but this time we're just doing a more, we're doing some formatting, making it prettier. So Venus, Earth, Mars. So you can actually build things like this. And here is also talking about the fact you can split things up if it makes it easier. So in different lines, so you can, it's the same as this example here, but that is, the only difference is that we are not using each, is splitting it, 3 lines. It's not assigning to a variable, so I'm not sure. Right, so it's going with the SQL analogy, which is very good if you have learned SQL before. If you haven't, I would recommend you to just search on Google about SQL where clause or SQL select where, and then you'll find an example or two of SQL statements. Don't worry too much about them. I have plenty of opportunities to learn them. See here, this example, it's going to repeat the number 32 for each planet inside planets. Don't see much the point there. So here an example of a method to count the negative numbers. So first example is using a for loop, simple for loop. So for each negative that we find in a list of numbers that we give it as a parameter, it will add a new add an increment, a counter of negative number. Then at the end it will return the number of negative numbers. And look the difference here, right? If we use like 5 lines of code without using list comprehensions, but here we only have 1 line. And the question is it easy to understand now that you know about list comprehensions? Would you prefer this way of writing it? If you ask me, this is quite easy to read. Well, they're going to make even better, but see if they haven't. Right, so another version of the counter negatives, but this time different. They've kind of defined. So we are using a function sum. Okay, this is more difficult to understand, but okay, so I'll explain it, right? So this here inside the brackets, if you forget the function, it's going to give you a true or false. It's going to give you a true for each number inside a list of numbers. No, sorry. It's going to give you a true if the number is below 0, and a false if the number is bigger or equal to 0, right? So true, false, true, false, true, false. And then the way it works, Python will treat it as a 1 or a 0, right? So we will sum it. It will do a sum of, if you use the sum function, it will take a list. In this case, even if it's a list of booleans, it will treat the boolean a true as a 1 and the false as a 0. Then you'll get the number of negatives. But if you ask me, I don't really like this way. Okay, you save a bit of not save that much, right? I think this is much easier to read, and the actual gain that you get is not a lot. Okay, so it's kind of restating here in this paragraph that you should pay attention. Readability is something that you should always have in mind. Don't always think that the shortest line of code is the best, because quite often it isn't. Just remember that if you're working in a team, someone is not going to appreciate so much if you try to be too clever. And I don't know, has happened before. People think they are very smart and they just put the piece of code like in 1 line and nobody can read it. They'll just delete it. Curse you behind. So being explicit always better than implicit, because explicit means it's easy to see what you're trying to do. Implicit is that when you're trying to when you make assumptions, because if you know the language very well, you know that there's certain things you don't have to do. For instance, in this example, we just saw that we know that Python treats booleans as a number as well. We want to, and we've used that quirk to basically make our function shorter, right? But then the drawback to that is the readability is bad, and we are not being very explicit of what we're trying to do. Right. So now, the code challenge. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to complete that today. I'm going to do that tomorrow, but I would love to see you again at the same time, 9 o'clock tomorrow evening. I will do the second part of this course. I'll invite you as well to go and basically go and try it yourself. Maybe if you do it today and tomorrow, you'll be able to take better advantage of my next live stream, where you'll see how I've resolved as well. So I'm just going to put the link in the description, and then you will be able to try it yourself. Thank you so much for your full attention in this live stream. If you really like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you would like to be notified when you get more, when I make more videos or make live streams, please click the subscribe button. Have a great evening. Bye bye.